The welcome home party for Leo never materialized. Instead, Caleb treated them to dinner. No one mentioned Noah at first. Sam avoided the subject, while Leo and another friend, David, were still processing the shock. Only Jake, his inhibitions lowered by a glass of wine, lacked a filter. He wondered aloud why the little assistant wasn't there. The lively private room fell silent for a beat. The temperature seemed to drop. Sam sipped her tea, her gaze flickering towards Caleb. Beside her, Leo and David exchanged a look, shrugging. They couldn't comprehend how their friend of 10 years had suddenly changed his preferences. When the silence stretched, Jake raised his glass, his curiosity piqued. He asked if Noah had run off. Sam set her cup down, her voice soft as she explained she'd heard he transferred hospitals. Transferred? Jake had assumed he was discharged. Sam clarified that he was still unwell. He couldn't have been discharged, and that he had gone to another city. Leo's eyes widened as he joined the conversation, asking if that meant Caleb had been dumped. David gestured dramatically at Caleb's face, remarking that his friend's dead-inside expression was pure, unadulterated heartbreak. Sam propped her chin on her hand and smiled faintly, noting that Caleb hadn't been nearly this devastated when they broke up. It was a blow to her pride. They spoke freely, with no regard for the subject of their discussion sitting right beside them. Caleb didn't mind the gossip, but faced with friends who were merely enjoying his misery, he simply signaled the waiter for another bottle of red wine. He told them to drink more and talk less. After filling their glasses, he raised his own for a toast. Later that night, Leo had to help a heavily intoxicated Caleb home. His head hit the pillow and he was lost to the world. In the past, Leo would have helped him undress before leaving. But things were different now. A line had been crossed. Leo managed to pull off his friend's jacket and shoes, leaving the rest for Caleb to handle himself. He slept deeply, lost in a long dream. In this life, there was no mistaken identity at their first meeting, no stunned shock during a tangled kiss. There was no shy smile from behind a checkout counter, no frantic passion under a streetlight, no heart-pounding moments in the break room. The Noah who only smiled at him, who clung to him for kisses and hugs, had never existed. He had left no trace on Caleb's life. In the dream, Caleb simply moved into a new apartment on an ordinary day, his neighbor a stranger he rarely saw. He still started a company with Jake, their paths only crossing occasionally in the hallway. A brief, unacknowledged passing because they didn't know each other. He lived there for a few years, made more money, and moved. A few years after that, he married a gentle, elegant woman he'd met on a blind date. They were a perfect match. They had a child and a dog and moved into a villa in the suburbs. When his child grew up, Caleb sold his company shares and dedicated his time to hobbies befitting a man entering his later years. It was a beautiful dream, yet he felt no happiness. A growing sense of confusion plagued him, his mind haunted by the fleeting image of a face he had never seen. He asked his wife, but she didn't know. He asked his child, who also shook their head. No one he knew recognized the person. Yet Caleb could recall his face, every detail so vivid it felt real. A panic began to set in, but he couldn't wake from the dream. He was trapped, trying countless times to open his eyes, but his eyelids were impossibly heavy. His limbs felt pinned to the bed, which seemed to be sinking, pulling him down into an abyss. He failed to wake up, spending a lifetime searching in vain within his dream. 1 year later, Annie, her makeup immaculate and her attire sharp, bustled through the office. Someone called her name, handing her a folder. It was the file she'd requested that morning. She thanked him with a quick nod and a slight curve of her lips, reminding him to just call her Annie. She returned to the secretarial pool and her professional posture immediately slumped. She complained to Andy, who was typing an email, that she was going to die. Andy, sitting perfectly straight, typed the final letter and sent the email before turning to her. He informed her that it was her 13th death declaration of the week. This time, Annie insisted it was real. She ran a hand through her hair, musing the sleek black strands. She had been through 3 meetings and over a dozen calls since morning without a moment for even a sip of water, and she still had to attend a gala with Mr. Thorne that evening. She begged for someone to just end her suffering. Andy remained impassive, stating that it was the end of the year and being busy was normal. Before she could argue, the door to the office behind her opened a crack. Annie instantly straightened her back, all traces of her earlier exhaustion gone. Caleb Thorne emerged, asking if the car was ready. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that accentuated his broad shoulders and narrow waist, his long legs making Annie momentarily forget her complaints. Her energy returned in a rush. She confirmed that everything was ready and the driver was waiting downstairs. Caleb gave a slight nod, draping his suit jacket over his forearm as he walked towards the elevator. The driver pulled up to the city's most luxurious hotel, the plaza in front already lined with black town cars. Caleb put on his jacket after stepping out of the car and walked in with Annie, running into an acquaintance at the entrance. A faint, perfectly calibrated smile appeared on his face as he engaged in smooth conversation, the two of them entering the event hall together. The conference was on the 20th floor. It was less of a conference and more of a series of empty speeches, followed by a banquet designed for networking. The titans of their industry gathered, the men in sharp suits, the women in exquisite makeup. Every casual expression and offhand comment was a veiled probe. Jake was there, dressed in a custom-made silver-gray suit with diamond cufflinks that could blind a man. The scent of his cologne preceded him, causing Caleb to frown and subtly shift away. Jake noticed his plague-like avoidance and deliberately moved closer, asking what was wrong. Caleb took 2 steps back, holding his wine glass. He told Jake his scent was overpowering and was giving him a headache. Jake stood his ground, lifted his arm to sniff his own sleeve, and looked genuinely confused. He couldn't understand the problem. He had chosen the scent carefully before leaving, thinking it was quite pleasant. Caleb told him to enjoy it by himself and to please keep his distance. Jake called him tasteless but maintained a half-meter distance. He then brought up a matter he had mentioned before, asking if Caleb had thought about it. When Caleb asked what he was talking about, Jake reminded him about Lucas, the painter. Caleb finally recalled Jake's sudden whim 2 weeks ago to introduce him to a young man. He couldn't quite remember his face, only that he was young, fresh out of college. Jake waved it off, saying looks were all that mattered and asked if Caleb wasn't interested. Caleb said he wasn't. The man was too young. Jake was perplexed, pointing out that his previous assistant wasn't much older. Caleb sighed, his head throbbing from the cologne. He asked Jake to stay out of his personal life. But Jake never knew when to quit. He wondered if Caleb wasn't fully committed to his new preference, offering to introduce him to beautiful women instead if he was interested. Fed up, Caleb turned and walked away, wanting nothing more to do with him for the rest of the evening. With the nuisance gone, Caleb collected a number of business cards throughout the banquet, some from potential partners, others from people trying to recruit him. He accepted them all and handed them to Annie for safekeeping. Annie, with her sharp eyes, was the first to notice that Caleb looked unwell. She asked if he was feeling all right. Caleb admitted he felt a bit sick. Perhaps the heating in the venue was too high, but he felt stuffy, slightly short of breath. He told her it was nothing and that he was just going to step out for some air. In the corridor, Caleb intended to go to the stairwell for a cigarette. But as he pushed the door open, he saw Jake pressing a young man in his early 20s against the wall. Their mouths locked in a passionate kiss. Caleb couldn't stand the sight. It was too much. He immediately shut the door. The image was jarring, and as he turned away, a wave of nausea rose from his stomach. Then his vision went black. He woke up in a noisy hospital emergency room, lying on a hard gurney, and 4-needle was taped to the back of his right hand, feeding fluid into his veins. Annie was the first to see he was awake, leaning over to tell him he had a fever and had collapsed in the hallway. She added that thankfully Mr. Young had found him and brought him to the hospital. At the mention of Jake, Caleb felt a pang of irritation. He wouldn't have fainted if it weren't for him. He tried to sit up, but Annie advised him to rest as his fever was still high. He asked what time it was. As he spoke, he realized how raw his voice was, his throat dry and painful, as if lined with razor blades. Annie told him it was after 10. Caleb's gaze fell on her slightly smudged eyeliner. He told her to go home. Annie hesitated, wanting to wait until his 4 was finished so she could take him home. Caleb shook his head, insisting he was fine. At his persistence, Annie finally left. An hour later, the 4 drip was finished. Caleb took a cab home, assuming a good night's sleep would fix everything. But in the middle of the night, the fever returned with a vengeance. He struggled to open his eyes, using his last bit of strength to call Jake. The moment he spoke, Jake was alarmed, asking him if he hadn't had a drop of water in years. Caleb had no energy for banter. He delegated urgent work matters and then tossed his phone aside, burying himself in his bed. He was burning up, too weak to work, and could only sleep fitfully at home. Both Annie and Andy called, offering to bring medicine or take him to the hospital. Caleb refused them all. He found some ibuprofen in his cabinet, unsure if it was expired, and swallowed it with a mouthful of water, hoping to sleep off the aggressive fever. Jake had gossiped that Caleb's illness was karma. His work mania over the past year had driven his employees to curse him behind his back, which was why he had suddenly fallen ill. Annie and Andy, feeling a twinge of guilt, remained silent on the matter. Caleb didn't know how long he slept, drifting in and out of consciousness, sometimes unable to distinguish reality from dreams. Suddenly, he heard Noah's voice, calling his name over and over again by his ear. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. He was jolted awake and sat up in bed, but no one was there. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Caleb swung his bare feet onto the floor. He searched the entire apartment, but there was no sign of Noah. He thought he must be delirious from the fever. But then he heard Noah's voice again, just outside the door. Even knowing it was a hallucination, Caleb walked over and opened it, needing to see the empty hallway to clear his head. But Noah was really there, standing by the door with his mother. They were carrying a suitcase and several bags, looking as if they had just returned from a trip. At the sound of the door opening, Noah turned his head. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to vanish. Caleb stood frozen in his doorway. Noah's mother saw him first and gave a nervous smile. Then, as if remembering something, she turned to her son. "Noah, say hello." She faltered, unsure how to introduce Caleb. To her surprise, Noah looked at Caleb calmly and gave a slight nod. "Hello." Noah was dressed in casual clothes, a hoodie obscuring the scar on his neck. He had gained some weight and his complexion was better. Though still unnaturally pale, he no longer had the deathly pallor he'd had in the hospital. In fact, carrying all the luggage had brought a faint flush to his cheeks. He looked well, very well. The reunion was far more subdued than Caleb had ever imagined, almost bland. He couldn't remember if he had responded. A moment later, the hallway was empty except for him. He stood there, dazed, unsure if they had gone inside their apartment or if the whole encounter had been a fever dream. He returned to his room and found his phone wedged between the mattress and the headboard. There were many unread messages, one of which was from Noah's mother, sent the day before. She had written that Noah was doing much better and that they planned to return the next day. Caleb, lost in his feverish state for 2 days, hadn't checked his phone and had missed it. Noah was really back. Caleb sat on the edge of his bed, his hair a mess, staring blankly for a long time. He replayed the image of Noah in his mind. His appearance, his expression, his tone of voice, everything was different. He told himself he didn't like this new Noah. He was a stranger. He preferred the old, neurotic version. This one he didn't like. After a moment of self-deception, he almost believed it. But in the middle of the night, when the fever spiked so high he felt he was on death's door, Caleb couldn't stop himself from sitting up and opening his message thread with Noah. He typed for a long time, but in the end, sent nothing. He tossed the phone aside in frustration. Brat. Ungrateful kid. He muttered the words under his breath until he fell asleep, or perhaps passed out from the fever again. The next day, Caleb's fever broke. He woke up in a sweat around noon and, while showering, realized just how terrible he must have looked when he ran into Noah the day before. His pajamas were wrinkled, his hair was a bird's nest, a shadow of stubble was around his mouth, and he probably had sleep in his eyes. It was a miracle Noah had managed to greet him so calmly. Caleb went to the office that afternoon. Annie and Andy shot him looks of terror, fearing he might drop dead on the spot, taking their jobs with him. Caleb noticed their staring. His voice, though still a bit weak, lost none of its authority as he asked if they were done with the work he had assigned them. The two of them immediately turned and fled. Later that afternoon, Andy buzzed his office. He informed Caleb that a guest named Lucas was there to see him. He didn't have an appointment but claimed to be a friend. Caleb picked up the phone. Lucas? Andy confirmed the name after a brief, muffled question to someone nearby. He's here, he said. Caleb told him to let him in. A few seconds later, the office door opened. Lucas, looking young and handsome, walked in wearing a suit that seemed a bit mature for him but somehow fit perfectly. Every strand of his hair radiated youthful energy. He smiled as he approached. Caleb, he said, I was here to see Jake and heard you were sick, so I thought I'd check on you. Caleb gestured for him to sit on the sofa and had Andy bring in a cup of coffee. Lucas asked if he was interrupting his work. Caleb, sitting opposite him, replied out of politeness that he wasn't. Lucas smiled, a small dimple appearing by his mouth, giving him a friendly air. He took a sip of coffee, expressing his relief that Caleb wasn't too busy. An awkward silence hung in the air. Caleb showed no intention of speaking, but Lucas wasn't one to let a conversation die. He set his cup down and asked if Caleb was feeling better. Caleb confirmed that he was. Lucas then mentioned his upcoming art exhibition in 2 weeks and asked if Caleb would have time to attend. Caleb was non-committal, saying he wasn't sure what his schedule would be like and wasn't particularly interested in art exhibitions anyway. However, not wanting to be rude, he vaguely promised to come if he had time. Lucas's face lit up, his eyes round and bright like a deer's. He said he would look forward to it. Lucas didn't stay long. After finishing his coffee, he said he had to get back to preparing for his exhibition and left. After seeing him out, Caleb felt an inexplicable wave of fatigue and a slight dizziness. When Andy came in to collect the coffee cup, he saw Caleb's pale face and grew tense. He asked if he was okay and offered to take him to the hospital. Caleb waved him off, pinching the bridge of his nose to force himself to focus. He instructed Andy to bring in the quarterly reports. Andy was genuinely worried Caleb would work himself to death. The company didn't need 2 secretaries if the boss was gone, which meant he and Annie would be out of a job. Caleb had always been a workaholic to a frightening degree. 6 months ago, he had been scraped by a machine at the factory, bleeding all over the floor. But after a quick trip to the hospital to get bandaged up, he had returned to the office to continue working. But today he seemed strangely fragile. Perhaps it was the fever. Caleb stayed in the office until midnight, the last light on in the entire building. He finally stood up, forced to go home. The common areas were dark, save for the constant glow of the elevator light. Caleb turned off his office light and walked through the darkness towards the single point of brightness. In the elevator, his mind was still on the new project. But as he drove along the empty streets, his thoughts were consumed by Noah. A sick Noah, a Noah playing basketball, a Noah playing video games, a Noah in the hospital, and the Noah of now. The images crowded his mind, impossible to shake. He parked his car. Walking from the garage to the elevator, Caleb found himself hoping he might run into his neighbor, even though he knew at this hour only ghosts were out. He reached his front door unimpeded, yet a feeling of emptiness gnawed at him, as if something was missing. As he closed the door, he glanced back. For the past year, he had grown accustomed to the door across the hall remaining shut, a sealed space that had also sealed away his memories. But now Noah was back. The door had come back to life. Maybe one day, it would open as he was leaving or returning. Would Noah greet him then, as calmly as he had yesterday? And how should he respond? A simple hello, and then they would pass each other like ordinary neighbors? The thought was suffocating. But Caleb was thinking too far ahead. It was a full week before he actually ran into his neighbor at his front door. He had a short business trip and had come home to grab something. As he was opening his door, he saw Noah getting out of the elevator. Noah had changed from his casual clothes of the previous week. He was now in formal wear, a white shirt and dress pants, looking like a recent college graduate. A patch on his neck covered the scar. He seemed startled to see Caleb, nearly getting caught in the closing elevator doors and stumbling forward. Caleb had 1 digit left to enter in his door code, but he didn't press it. He turned and looked openly at Noah. There was nothing wrong with looking at a neighbor. Noah, feeling the weight of his gaze, froze for a moment before silently walking to his own door. "Found a job?" Caleb asked suddenly. There was nothing wrong with showing concern for a neighbor. Noah, his back to Caleb, fumbled with his keys. He shook his head, then, realizing Caleb might not see, spoke. "No." Caleb said nothing more. The key in Noah's hand finally found the lock. He turned it and the door opened. He hesitated before stepping inside, but the silence behind him was absolute, so he went in. Standing in the empty hallway, Caleb thought that the old monk had been wrong. There was nothing enlightened about him. He was greedy, selfish, and completely unable to control the desires of his heart. Caleb went on his business trip to the next state, compressing a 4-day itinerary into 2. The first thing he did upon returning to his office was ask Annie. Noah never completed his resignation paperwork when he left. Did he? Annie looked up, confused. She wanted to say he never completed his hiring paperwork either. Caleb ignored her, issuing a command. Have HR contact him. Tell him to come back. leaving without a proper handover. What kind of behavior is that? Baffled, Annie went to ask Andy. Noah had been gone for over half a year. What was there to hand over? Andy pondered for a moment before concluding. Maybe Noah's family went bankrupt, and the boss is taking the opportunity to give him a hard time. To humiliate him? Annie guessed. Highly likely. Though she felt sorry for Noah, the boss's word was law. Annie went to the HR department and repeated Caleb's request. The HR manager was as confused as she was. The two of them gossiped in hushed tones for a while but came up with nothing. HR didn't even have Noah's resume, only a copy of his ID. Luckily, they had his phone number. Noah was silent for a long time when he received the call. After confirming they had the right person, he asked when would be a good time to come in. HR suggested the sooner the better. Noah agreed and hung up. The next morning, Noah appeared at the office. Annie and Andy were surprised to see him. Annie, especially, was delighted, calling him Little Noah and exclaiming over how he'd filled out. She said he looked much better, commented on his new haircut, and peppered him with questions about his skincare routine and how he stayed so pale. Noah offered her a polite smile, his eyes crinkling at the corners, making him look very gentle. He explained that he didn't have a skincare routine. This time, even Andy was stunned. His mouth fell open. You can talk? Although Annie had rattled off a long string of questions, she hadn't actually expected an answer. In the past, Noah would at most nod or shake his head, never uttering a word. Noah's lips pressed together in an apologetic smile, feeling he had been a bother to them before. The two assistants were floored, their worldviews shattered. But it also confirmed their theory. Noah's family must have really gone bankrupt. The rich heir was gone, replaced by someone who had learned to survive with a smile. Is there anything I need to hand over? HR said it was urgent, Noah asked. Annie finally remembered her task. She scrambled to find some miscellaneous items, but it only took Noah about 15 minutes to deal with them. Is that all? He asked, looking as if he was ready to leave. That wouldn't do. Caleb was in a morning meeting and wasn't back yet. Annie couldn't possibly let Noah go. Besides, Caleb had called him back to find fault with him. The fault-finding hadn't even begun. She had to stall. She told him to wait, explaining that Mr. Thorne was in a meeting and she needed to check with him if there was anything else. At the mention of Caleb's name, Noah seemed uncomfortable. He hesitated. Do we have to ask him? Annie felt it was unnecessary too, but it was her job. She insisted that since he was Mr. Thorne's personal assistant, only Mr. Thorne would know the full extent of his duties. Hearing this, Noah had no choice but to sit and wait. Annie, still not used to a talkative Noah, kept encouraging him to speak, trying to make up for all the silent months. She regaled him with office gossip from the past year, laughing so hard at one point that she didn't notice Caleb had returned from his meeting. What's so funny? Like a bolt of lightning, Annie froze. Her expression shifted instantly to one of stern seriousness. Nothing. Not funny at all. Caleb gave a cold smirk that sent a chill down her spine. You in my office. With that, he pushed the door open and went inside. Noah remained seated. Annie shot a glare at Andy, blaming him for not giving her a heads up. Andy felt wronged. He had been engrossed in the gossip. He hadn't realized Caleb could walk so silently. Noah, go on in, Annie urged, understanding his reluctance but knowing it was best to get it over with. Noah procrastinated for a while. Finally, Caleb's patience ran out, and he buzzed the outer office to ask why the person hadn't come in yet. Noah dragged his feet to the door, knocked once, and upon hearing the come in, took a deep breath and entered. Caleb sat behind his large desk, elbows on the armrests, fingers interlaced in front of his chest, looking up at Noah. Noah stood opposite him. The room was silent, punctuated only by the faint sound of Annie answering a call outside. The soundproofing in this office isn't very good, Noah thought idly. Is the handover complete? Caleb spoke first. Yes. Noah nodded, his gaze lowered, like a proper assistant. How have you been? Fine. Found a job? Not yet. Caleb frowned. He disliked Noah's tone, his expression. Everything about the person standing before him seemed wrong. The old Noah, though not one for long sentences, would say sweet things to please him. He would say he liked him, missed him, would call his name. This new Noah, though he looked healthy, like someone who had never been sick, no longer pleased Caleb at all. Caleb unlaced his fingers, tapping one of them unconsciously on the desk. If you can't find a job right away, you can come back to your old position. No, thank you. That would be too much trouble for you. Caleb felt they were supposed to be this distant, yet a wave of irritation washed over him. He leaned back in his chair, tiredly pinching the bridge of his nose. He closed his eyes. Since the handover is done, you can go. Noah had already turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back hesitantly. About before, no need for thanks. Caleb cut him off, his expression flat. I can't accept it. After Noah left, Jake, who had heard about the incident from somewhere, came specifically to mock Caleb. He burst in without knocking. I told you not to be so cliché. What era is this, still playing the CEO and his secretary game? How tacky. Get out, Caleb said, looking up at him. Jake, unfazed, suggested a push-and-pull strategy, advising Caleb to try ignoring him for a while. Cold shoulder? The man was already an iceberg, and it hadn't made Noah look twice. Caleb decided that Jake, who only ever chased after young guys, was the last person to take relationship advice from. He repeated his order to get out with more force this time. Jake placed an envelope on the desk. I came to give you this. Lucas asked me to bring it to you. It was a ticket to the art exhibition. He advised Caleb that if he couldn't win one over, he should move on. He pointed out that Lucas was a great option, so fresh and vibrant. Thanks, Caleb said, tossing the ticket into a drawer. He looked up at Jake. Goodbye. Noah's mother had recently bought a garment steamer, which she used to press his clothes. After smoothing a tie until it was perfectly crisp, she brought it into his room. Noah, the tie is ready. Want me to help you with it? Noah turned around, his hair still soft and unstyled against his forehead. He took the tie, his voice cool. No need. His mother said nothing, watching as he tied it himself. She then handed him the medical patch from his desk. Ready to go? She asked before he left. How many interviews today? When do you think you'll be back? Noah bent down to change his shoes. Standing up, he opened the door. 1. I'll be back soon. Okay, I'll have dinner ready. Noah closed the door, glanced meaninglessly at the apartment opposite his, and turned towards the elevator. The job market was tough. Noah had come to realize this was no empty phrase. He had sent out countless resumes since his return, but few led to interviews. And even when he did well in an interview, he never heard back. Still, he had to keep trying, a fruitless cycle of applying, interviewing, and being rejected. Today's interview was for an administrative position at a construction company. 2 years ago, Noah would have been considered overqualified. But now, looking at the large blank space on his resume, the interviewer just frowned and asked what he had been doing all this time. After his honest answer, there was predictably no follow-up. Noah walked out of the office building, resume in hand, and looked up at the sun. It looked brilliant, but it gave off no heat. Not unlike him, he thought. No, he was far worse. He didn't even have any brilliance left. He was just rotten inside. When he got home, his mother had lunch ready. She didn't ask how the interview went. The answer was obvious. As she placed a bowl of soup on the table, she noticed a poster he had brought back and picked it up. She found him changing in his room. "Noah, did you bring this back because you want to do part-time work?" Noah, having just taken off his shirt, glanced at it. "Yeah. I need to earn some money." His mother advised against it, saying his body hadn't fully recovered and such a job would be tiring for little pay. She reminded him that they weren't out of money and he could keep looking for other jobs, or even not work if he didn't want to. Noah finished changing and hung his shirt neatly in the closet, silent in the face of her persuasion. Seeing she couldn't convince him, his mother dared not be forceful. She swallowed her words and simply said, "Wash your hands and come eat." The part-time job was playing a teddy bear mascot at an amusement park. The pay, $300 a day, was quite high, but it was difficult. He had to stand for 12 hours, constantly interacting with visitors, and the costume weighed over 30 pounds, like wearing a suit of armor. There was a 10-minute break every hour. There were 6 mascots in total at the park. Noah sat in the break room, drenched in sweat, drinking water. The employee playing the rabbit mascot came in for his break and asked if he was new. Noah put down his water bottle, trying to sound less distant. "Yes. I thought so," the rabbit said conversationally. The last bear was a tall guy over 6 feet. Heard he moved away with his girlfriend. Noah wasn't interested in the previous bear, but the rabbit was friendly, so he listened. The rabbit asked him how old he was, saying he looked young. When Noah said he was 25, the rabbit's eyes widened, just like the round eyes on the rabbit head he was holding. He had thought Noah was a college student like him. The rabbit, despite the character's long ears, had a buzz cut. Noah envied him. It must be much cooler. "I'm Jordan." "You?" The rabbit had a name. "Noah." "Oh crap," Jordan's expression changed. He stood up abruptly. "I almost forgot I have to go to the bathroom. Won't have time later." He quickly shed his costume, leaving him in a t-shirt and shorts, and strode into the restroom. Noah's break was over. He put on the teddy bear head and walked out with heavy steps. There were many children at the park today. They would run up to him excitedly. Some mischievous ones would poke the costume's belly or kick it to see if there was a real person inside. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., by the time his shift ended, Noah was on the verge of collapse. He suspected he had sweated out at least 8 pounds. The other mascot employees gradually returned. To Noah's surprise, several were girls. Though their faces were also slick with sweat, they seemed much more composed than he was. "Noah, is this your water bottle?" Jordan was very familiar, already calling him by his first name after just a brief chat. He was holding a pink water bottle that looked nothing like something Noah would use. Noah shook his head. "That's mine." The frog girl took the water bottle from Jordan. Jordan frowned, asking her why she changed her bottle every day and kept leaving it in his locker. The frog girl laughed, saying she just put it down casually and telling him not to mind. Noah quietly placed his costume in its designated spot, changed his clothes, and walked out. As he reached the park entrance, he heard footsteps and a familiar voice behind him. "Noah." He turned to see Jordan jogging towards him. Jordan slung an arm over his shoulder. "Why'd you leave without a word?" "I was looking for you." The touch on his shoulder was uncomfortable. Noah wanted to shrug it off but restrained himself. "What's up?" Jordan removed his arm, smiling. We're all going out to eat. Want to come? No, I have to go home. What? It's your first day. We wanted to welcome you. Noah shook his head. I'm just doing this part-time. I won't be here long. So what? Jordan shrugged. I'm part-time too. I have classes on weekdays and only come on weekends. Everyone's really nice. Just come have dinner with us. Do you have other plans tonight? He didn't have plans, but he didn't want to go. Noah declined again. I'll pass. You guys have fun. All right then. Jordan looked a bit disappointed but didn't press further. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Noah turned and walked towards the bus stop. See you tomorrow, Noah. Even though the person in front didn't turn back, Jordan raised his arm and waved before returning to the break room. After 2 days of part-time work at the amusement park, Noah interviewed with a few more companies, all with disappointing results. He felt dejected. At home, he became even more withdrawn, lying in bed flipping through a comic book he had read countless times. His mother knocked softly on his door, asking him to eat. He refused. She tried to tempt him with fruit, pineapple she had just bought. He still wasn't hungry. The hallway fell silent. Noah finished the entire comic book and noticed it was dark outside. He got up from his bed. The living room was dark. His mother was sitting alone at the dining table, where a cold meal sat untouched. Seeing him, she seemed to activate, like a video game character triggered by a player's presence. A placating smile appeared on her face. You must be hungry. The food's cold, just a minute, I'll heat it up. She quickly took the dishes to the kitchen and efficiently started the stove. Noah didn't have an appetite, but he said nothing. He turned on the living room light and sat at the table. When his mother brought the warmed food back, he ate in silence, finishing every piece of food she placed in his bowl. His mother was so focused on making him eat that she barely touched her own food. When Noah put down his chopsticks, she suggested in a carefully measured tone, "The weather forecast says it'll be warm tomorrow. Want to go for a walk in the park? I have my part-time job tomorrow." Noah stood up and took his used dishes to the kitchen. "I'll wash them. You go rest," his mother said, following him. Noah didn't speak. He washed the dishes cleanly before turning to her. "Have you eaten? You barely touched your food." "Oh, not yet," his mother stammered. "You should eat. I'm going back to my room." Noah shook the water from his hands and walked back to his room. A notebook lay open on his desk. He sat down and, after a moment's thought, added his first entry of income at the bottom. The meager salary was a drop in the ocean compared to the debt recorded above it. But at least it was something coming in. His mother had kept the accounts before, meticulously noting every expense after borrowing money from Caleb, recording her guilt with each transaction. But it had paid off. At least Noah was out of the hospital. Noah gripped the pen, his mind drifting. After a long while, his gaze returned to the notebook. The pen in his hand seemed to move on its own, his fingers following its lead, writing a name, stroke by stroke, on the paper. His expression was serious, almost reverent. When he finished the last stroke and saw the name Caleb Thorne, he realized what he had done. He quickly scribbled over it, obscuring the name with black ink. Then he closed the notebook with a frustrated frown, leaned forward, and let his forehead thud against the desk. He kept his eyes shut tight, not moving until all the lights outside his window had gone out. Until he found a full-time job, the amusement park gig was his only source of income. It was also a way to start re-engaging with society, so Noah treated it with seriousness. In contrast, the other employees were much more relaxed, joking around from the moment they arrived. The atmosphere in the break room was always loose. The frog girl was playfully arguing with Jordan. Jordan, standing in front of her, gestured with his hand. At your height, it's normal to think I'm a giant. Incensed at the jab about her height, the frog girl raised her fist to hit him. Jordan laughed and dodged, somehow ending up behind Noah, grabbing his arms for cover. You started it, why are you getting mad? He taunted. Noah was now a human shield. Jordan was close behind him, his voice echoing near his ear, saying it was just a weird hairstyle with a tuft sticking up like on his dog. The frog girl, now thoroughly provoked, reached around Noah to grab Jordan. Jordan dodged and yelled, "Noah, save me!" Caught between them, Noah was jostled back and forth until he felt dizzy. His quiet protest to be let go was lost in their mock battle. Smack! The frog girl's hand, intended for Jordan, landed on Noah's arm. She froze for a second, her round eyes, much like a frog's, looking at Noah. Sorry, did that hurt? It didn't hurt. Noah looked helplessly over his shoulder at the 6-foot-plus man hiding behind him. Can you let go? Jordan was reveling in his victory. Can't. She'll hit me. Finally, someone else intervened, telling them to get ready for their shift. The crisis averted, Jordan released Noah and plopped onto a nearby stool. He looked up at Noah. Hey, what's with the patch on your neck? Stiff neck? Yeah. Noah didn't know how to answer. Jordan continued, saying he'd had a stiff neck once that lasted 2 whole days, and it had been agony. Just as the frog girl started to retort, Noah quickly put on his costume and escaped outside. The sun was high and warm. Before long, Noah was drenched in sweat. When he returned to the break room, his shirt was soaked through. Jordan wasn't much better. He pulled out 2 fans, handing one to Noah. He complained about the heat, then noted that Noah was overdressed in a long-sleeved shirt. He was very talkative, chattering nonstop. Among all the mascots, only Noah was completely covered from head to toe, except for his face. He looked down at his sleeves, which covered his wrists, and didn't respond. Noah, are you free on Monday? Jordan suddenly asked. He explained that a classmate had bailed on a gig, and he needed a replacement. The pay was good, $500 for the day. Noah confirmed he had no interviews scheduled and asked what the job was. Jordan explained it was at an art exhibition doing miscellaneous tasks, and was usually pretty relaxed. He grabbed Noah's arm, pleading, "Come on. I've been looking for someone for days. Everyone in my dorm is too rich to care about $500. The gallery also had height and appearance requirements and was only hiring men." After a brief hesitation, Noah agreed. Jordan was thrilled and pulled out his phone to add him on a messaging app, saying he'd send the time and location. Noah retrieved his phone from his locker. It had been a long time since he'd used the app. He had to search for the green icon. He opened it to a nearly empty chat screen, with only one conversation thread remaining. After Jordan scanned his code, he sent the details. "It's a deal then," Jordan said, putting his phone away as he prepared to go out. The atmosphere in Caleb's office was tense. Jake was the first to explode, throwing a file onto the floor. "I'm done. I don't care anymore." Caleb, seated in his chair, glanced at him, his voice colder than his eyes. "Suit yourself." "Fine. Just fine." Jake paced like a caged animal, then pointed a finger at Caleb. "You think you're above everyone now?" "No," Caleb said, smoothing a wrinkle on his sleeve. "Just you." He stood, walked around his desk, and took his coat from the rack. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." "You go," Jake roared. Caleb reached for the doorknob. "You dare walk out that door." The door opened. Hey, are you really leaving?" Caleb walked through the outer office. "Don't go," Jake yelled from the doorway, ignoring the stares from Annie and Andy. We still have to go to Lucas's exhibition." Caleb ignored him as if his shouts were nothing more than the buzzing of a fly. He pressed the elevator button. "Caleb Thorne." Ding. The elevator arrived. Caleb stepped inside. "This is your last." The doors closed, and the world was finally quiet. Noah. Jordan looked around the changing room but couldn't find Noah, who had just told him he was going to change. He asked another employee if he'd seen someone fitting Noah's description. Pale, slim, quiet-looking. The employee thought for a moment. "I think so." "Was he wearing a white hoodie?" Yes. Jordan nodded eagerly. "Where is he?" The employee pointed to a small door in the corner of the room. It led to a small, dark storage closet filled with unused items. When Noah entered, he realized there was no light switch. It didn't matter. He was comfortable in this level of darkness. It was familiar. He placed the uniform he'd been given on a shelf and began to pull off his hoodie. Knock, knock. The door was tapped twice, and a sliver of light cut through the darkness. It was Jordan. "It really is you, Noah, you... Get out." Noah had never spoken to Jordan in that tone. For a moment, Jordan was stunned, his hand frozen on the doorknob. Sorry. He quickly closed the door and backed away. Because the closet was dark, Jordan had only caught a fleeting glimpse of Noah's back as he was pulling off his hoodie before he was startled into closing the door. Inside, it took Noah a long moment to control the trembling in his body. He braced a hand against the wall, eyes closed, forcing himself to take deep breaths. Even so, when he reached for the uniform on the shelf, his fingers were so weak that he dropped the tie on the floor. Useless. He bent down, his face pale, and picked it up. As he buttoned the crisp, clean shirt, he was consumed by regret. He hated himself for coming here. He should leave immediately, go somewhere with no people, preferably no light, where no one could see him. No, stop. He bit down hard on his back teeth, trying to pull himself out of the spiral of negative emotions, recalling his doctor's words. It's normal to have these thoughts. Don't run from them. Confront them. Think about the reason you've held on this long. Fight for that. Jordan waited outside for several minutes before Noah emerged. Seeing his pale face, Jordan approached cautiously. Sorry about that. Did I scare you? Noah gave a small shake of his head, his voice lower than usual. No. He walked to his locker and put his clothes away. Jordan followed him like a shadow, trying to gauge his mood. He explained that at school, everyone was casual about changing, and he hadn't meant to intrude. He then realized his words might sound like he was disappointed he hadn't seen anything, and quickly added that he hadn't wanted to see anything either. Noah closed his locker. When he turned around, his expression was back to normal. I'm fine. You don't need to apologize. I overreacted. Jordan assured him it was okay and said he'd be more careful next time. He didn't ask why Noah had to change in a dark closet. He simply changed the subject, complimenting how handsome Noah looked in the uniform. Noah didn't think so, but out of politeness, he returned the compliment. The supervisor gathered them for a meeting, outlining their duties for the day. A few of the more presentable employees, including Jordan and Noah, were assigned to greet guests at the entrance. Jordan whispered that it was the easiest job. The gallery had been set up for days. The artist, a young man, arrived early to do a final check. He was dressed casually but still stood out, smiling and speaking softly to everyone, thanking them politely. Jordan whispered to Noah that he thought all artists had long hair, like in the movies. Noah told him that was a stereotype. Jordan remarked that the artist was handsome and impressive for having his own exhibition at such a young age. Compared to them working all day for $500, it was like night and day. The entrance was soon lined with flower baskets sent from all over. The artist was busy greeting friends who had come to support him, navigating the mix of commercial, sincere, and fake congratulations with ease. During a short lunch break, Noah and Jordan ate catered boxed lunches in the break room. Jordan asked if this job was easier than the mascot one. Noah nodded, forcing food into his mouth. Jordan finished his lunch in under 10 minutes and noticed Noah had barely eaten a third of his. He commented on how slowly Noah ate, like a cat. Noah had no appetite and was only eating because he knew he had to. He stuffed his mouth with rice, chewed until he could swallow, unable to taste anything. Jordan watched for a moment and then laughed. No, more like a hamster. The afternoon was the same as the morning. The gallery closed at 6, which was when their shift ended. By 5, there were hardly any new guests. Jordan stretched his stiff back and legs. "Let's get dinner tonight, Noah," he whispered. "I'll treat you when we get paid." "No thanks." Noah also felt sore but maintained his upright posture. "Why not? You probably don't have plans. How about hot pot?" Jordan persisted. Noah looked at him. "Do you have to spend your money the second you get it?" Jordan grinned. "What's the point of earning money if not to spend it? I worked hard all day. I deserve to treat myself to hot pot. You go by yourself." "I'm not going." "Come on, it's no fun eating alone. We know each other well enough now. We should at least have one meal together." They had only met 5 times. How had they become well enough? Noah started to say something else, but a movement in his peripheral vision caught his eye. 2 figures were walking in. He fell silent. The artist came out from inside the gallery, greeting the 2 men warmly. "Jake, Caleb, you're so late. I was starting to think you weren't coming." As the men drew closer, Noah's face turned white. His straight posture seemed to collapse under an immense weight. I have to go to the restroom," he mumbled to Jordan, turned, and walked quickly away, a hint of panic in his retreat. Jordan was confused. He checked to make sure the supervisor hadn't seen Noah leave his post. The artist was nearby but seemed preoccupied with his guests and probably wouldn't notice one missing attendant. "Of course we'd come," Jake lied smoothly, as if he hadn't been giving Caleb the silent treatment in the car all the way there. "Caleb even reminded me this morning not to forget." "Really?" Lucas smiled at Caleb. "Caleb, I was worried you'd be too busy to make it. I hope I didn't interrupt your work." Caleb, who had been dragged there, couldn't show his displeasure. He replied flatly, "You didn't." Jake, fearing Caleb would embarrass him, quickly ushered them inside. As they walked, Lucas said that his paintings weren't very good and they shouldn't laugh. Jake assured him he had the utmost respect for artists. Jake and Lucas chatted animatedly, making Caleb, who trailed behind them, feel out of place. He glanced at the paintings, not understanding any of them. Unlike Jake, who was waxing poetic about a canvas full of lines, Caleb's only thought was how soon he could go home. After a while, Lucas found Caleb and asked what he thought of the art. "They're very good," Caleb said concisely. Lucas saw through his perfunctory praise and smoothly changed the subject. He admitted that most people there weren't interested in the art, but were there for business or networking, buying paintings only to get closer to his family. Caleb was surprised by his candor and listened quietly. Lucas looked at him, his smile genuine for the first time. "That's why I'm so happy you came, Caleb. I know you're different." Caleb wanted to say he wasn't different, that he hadn't wanted to come either, but it wasn't the right time. "Your paintings are good," he said, falling back on polite platitudes. "Even if I don't understand them, I'm sure someone will." Lucas's dimple appeared, his eyes reflecting the gallery lights. "Really? You really think my paintings are good?" Caleb looked around. It's quite warm in here. Lucas noted the heating was on and offered to take his jacket. He spotted a server walking near the wall. "Excuse me, could you come here for a moment?" The server, his back partially to them, didn't seem to hear. Lucas took Caleb's jacket and raised his voice slightly. "Hello, could you please hold this jacket?" The server turned slowly, as if moving through molasses, and walked towards them. Lucas handed him the jacket. "Thank you." The server kept his head bowed, reaching out a pale hand to take the coat. As he was about to turn away, Caleb's voice cut in. "Noah?" Noah, head down, didn't react. It was Lucas who looked surprised. "Caleb, you know him?" "Yes," Caleb said, his eyes fixed on Noah's face. "You work here?" Noah's fingers tightened on the jacket. His body tensed. "I'm working part-time. I need to go put this away." Noah cut him off and fled. Caleb watched him go, silent for a long moment. It was Lucas who brought him back to the present. "What are the wages like here?" Caleb asked. Lucas was confused, saying he wasn't sure. Caleb frowned, asking if the servers worked all day or in shifts, if they got breaks, if they were fed. The coat check was at the entrance. Noah waited as another guest retrieved their items. The coat in his hands felt warm, perhaps from the gallery's heating. He thought of Caleb's face, of him talking with Lucas. They looked good together. Exceptional people belonged with other exceptional people. His gaze fell on the jacket. He carefully lifted it to his nose and inhaled. A faint, pleasant scent clung to the fabric. When it was his turn, he handed the coat over and received a small claim tag. He was supposed to give the tag to Caleb, but he didn't want to go back. He didn't want to see him standing with Lucas. He felt dark and twisted, like a patch of filthy mud. He gave the tag to another server, asking them to pass it to Lucas. It was the same difference. At 6 o'clock, the gallery stopped admitting new guests, and Noah and Jordan's shift was over. In the changing room, Jordan stripped down to his boxers, complaining about the stiff uniform. He put on his own clothes and turned to Noah. "The storage room is probably empty. You can go change. I'll keep watch for you." Noah thanked him for his thoughtfulness and went to the small closet. Jordan stood guard as promised. When Noah came out, Jordan immediately asked, "Hot pot?" He was persistent, either about the hot pot or about eating with Noah. His tenacity was starting to wear Noah down. Just as he was about to agree, his phone rang. He looked at the caller ID, and his expression changed. "What's wrong?" Jordan asked. "Are we going or not? If so, I'll make a reservation." "I have to go, sorry," Noah told him. "I need to take this call." He walked to the stairwell before answering. He said hello, and the line went dead. He stared at the screen, confused. Did he take too long to answer? Was it a wrong number? The sound of leather shoes on concrete steps echoed in the stairwell. Caleb descended, stopping on the third step, looking down at him. "Shift over?" His voice reverberated in the empty space. Noah's own voice felt strained. "Yes, I'm done too. We can go back together. It's on the way." "No, thank you. I can get back myself." Noah was always rejecting Caleb. Rejecting his help, his job offer, a ride home. "It's on the way," Caleb repeated, descending the last few steps to stand in front of him. Less than half a meter separated them. Noah caught the same faint scent from the jacket, and it distracted him. What cologne was it? When Noah didn't answer, Caleb frowned. "Well?" Noah's gaze met Caleb's. His throat felt dry. "It's probably not on the way. I have plans to get hot pot with someone." "Hot pot?" Caleb nodded. "I haven't eaten either. I'll join you." No. The simple word was so hard to say. Noah frowned in frustration at his own weakness. Before he could refuse, Caleb walked past him, pushed open the stairwell door, and looked back. "Let's go." Noah followed silently, a silent war raging within him. At the changing room door, Caleb gestured for him to open it. Jordan was gone. Noah told Caleb his friend had left, so they probably wouldn't be getting hot pot. "Then it'll just be the two of us," Caleb said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Noah met his dark gaze for a second before looking away. He asked quietly, "Why? Do I need a reason?" Caleb countered. He didn't. A savior wanted to have dinner with him. A normal person would be grateful. Only a wretch like Noah would be so difficult. They walked out of the building in silence. Lucas appeared, holding Caleb's jacket. He had been looking for him everywhere. Caleb took the jacket without comment. Lucas noticed Noah, recognizing the server from before. He smiled his universally charming smile. He told Noah that Caleb had been worried about him, asking all sorts of questions to make sure he wasn't being mistreated. Lucas patted his chest reassuringly, telling Noah to speak up if he had any complaints. Noah shook his head, saying everything was fine. Lucas expressed his relief, not wanting Caleb to think he was a bad boss. Caleb. The way he said it sounded so intimate. Noah couldn't help but sneak a glance at Caleb, who remained expressionless. He unconsciously touched his own neck. Someone called for Lucas from the parking lot. He turned to Caleb. "We're having a celebration dinner. You'll come, right?" He also invited Noah. Noah declined. "I can't make it either," Caleb said. Lucas looked disappointed by Caleb's refusal. Caleb gestured to Noah. "We have plans for dinner." Lucas's expression cleared. "Oh, I see. Well, we have lots of good food at the party. You should come. Jake's already there." Jake, who usually dodged every social event, was surprisingly eager to attend the young artist's party. Caleb turned to Noah, his voice clear. "Do you want to go?" Noah, surprised to be asked, answered honestly, "No." Caleb immediately turned back to Lucas. "We're not going. Congratulations on the successful exhibition. Have a good time tonight." Lucas could hardly insist. He waved goodbye and left. "Let's go," Caleb said to Noah. Noah stood still. Caleb drove his car up to him and lowered the passenger window. "Get in." The two words were surprisingly effective. Noah got in. "Since you don't have a preference, I'll choose," Caleb said, starting the car. Noah looked out the window. "Okay." Caleb chose a popular new hot pot restaurant. He got a private room. As they waited for the food, Caleb rolled up his sleeves, revealing toned forearms. He asked how Noah had been, as if their last unpleasant encounter hadn't happened. Noah answered honestly that he was fine. He asked why Noah was doing part-time work. Noah explained he hadn't found a full-time job yet. Caleb reminded him that his previous offer still stood. "Thank you, but no." "Why? You don't want to see me?" Noah looked up, meeting Caleb's direct gaze. The room was too small to escape. His throat felt dry. He took a sip of the strong, bitter tea. "No." "Then why? Your pride can't take it?" "No." Caleb's every question was laced with pressure. "Is it because you find it difficult to accept our past relationship?" Noah looked up and saw Caleb smiling, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He avoided his gaze, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's not that." "Is that so?" Caleb didn't seem to believe him. Noah stared at his teacup, his heart numb. He had expected Caleb to be disgusted with him, not to be sitting across from him having a civil dinner. He hadn't been prepared for this Caleb, who showed no contempt for his ungrateful, ghosting behavior. I just don't think the assistant role is a good fit for me. And my resume isn't good enough, Noah said, glancing quickly at Caleb. You've helped me so much already. I don't know how I can ever repay you. I don't want to trouble you anymore. Help? The smile vanished from Caleb's face. Noah gathered his courage. Thank you for before. I'll pay you back the money as soon as I can. And I'm sorry. At the time, I forget it. Don't talk about it. Caleb cut him off, his tone sharp, verging on annoyed. Noah's words caught in his throat. The atmosphere in the room plummeted. Thankfully, a waiter arrived with the bubbling hot pot, placing it between them. The steam softened the tension. Caleb seemed to regain his composure, picking up his chopsticks and cooking a piece of meat. The mood lightened. Caleb casually commented on the food and chatted about the art exhibition, asking about Noah's part-time job. The conversation finally felt normal. Noah listened intently, eating very little, occasionally answering questions, poking a piece of potato in his bowl until it was as battered as he felt. After dinner, as they were paying at the front, someone called Noah's name. Noah. Jordan ran over from somewhere in the restaurant, flinging an arm around Noah's shoulders, both excited and complaining. You came for hot pot without me. You really didn't want to eat with me, huh? Noah shot a glance at Caleb, who was handing his card to the cashier. Caleb turned his head and looked at them. Noah tried to shrug off Jordan's arm, explaining that he had looked for him but he was already gone. Jordan held on tighter, protesting that he had only gone to the restroom and had come back to find Noah gone. Noah gave up trying to dislodge him and manually removed his arm. Caleb had finished paying. His eyes swept over Jordan before settling on Noah. Aren't you going to introduce us? My coworker, Noah said, then gestured vaguely at Caleb. My neighbor. You look familiar, Jordan said, studying Caleb. Have we met? He was at the art exhibition this afternoon, Noah whispered. Jordan's face lit up in recognition. No wonder. Do you remember me? I was at the entrance with Noah. Caleb's dark eyes noted the small distance between Noah and Jordan, then met Jordan's gaze. No. Jordan chuckled, guessing it was because of the uniform. He asked if they were leaving. When Noah confirmed, Jordan expressed his regret that they hadn't eaten together. He waved them off cheerfully. All right, see you this weekend. After saying goodbye and leaving the restaurant, Noah felt the fragile warmth between him and Caleb turn cold again. Back in the car, Caleb asked casually, You have plans with your coworker this weekend? Not plans to hang out, Noah clarified. We're working part-time together. They were at a red light. Caleb braked and turned to look at him. What kind of job? Playing mascots at the amusement park. You two seem close. Working together all the time. Noah shrank into his seat. It's not about being close. He's just a nice person. He looks out for me. Caleb seemed to let out a cold laugh, but the light turned green and a car behind them honked, so Noah wasn't sure. He glanced at Caleb's stone-faced profile and decided he must have misheard. Caleb stepped on the gas, and they drove the rest of the way in silence. In the elevator and then in the hallway, Noah felt he should say something after the meal and the ride. He carefully chose his words. Thank you for tonight. Caleb, halfway through entering his door code, turned. His face was blank. It's nothing. We're just neighbors. Click. The lock opened. Caleb said a flat goodbye and closed the door. The sound, though not loud, made Noah flinch. He stood in the hallway for a long time before finally, as if waking from a dream, he turned and opened his own door, stepping into his own darkness. The next day, Annie was in a great mood, but it ended the moment she stepped into the office. First, A coworker's mistake landed in her lap. Then, a client canceled. The cafeteria lunch was inedible. But all of that paled in comparison to the thunderous look on Mr. Thorne's face, which had been there since morning. Andy spoke in whispers on the phone, terrified of provoking the storm in the main office. This was the 3,000th time Annie regretted taking this job. When she interviewed, she wasn't impressed. But then she saw Caleb Thorne and learned he would be her boss. She immediately accepted the offer. She had no idea he was a monster. Thankfully, Jake arrived that afternoon. He usually got into a fight with Caleb, which would absorb all of Caleb's anger. But today, Jake looked different. His face was bruised. Caleb, about to scold him for not knocking, stopped short. "Did you get mugged?" "No," Jake snapped, clearly not wanting to talk about it. "Caught cheating?" Caleb guessed. Given Jake's habits, he'd probably taken someone home from the party and run into their partner. This time, Jake didn't deny it. He was there to talk about a contract. As he went to sit on the sofa, he flinched and awkwardly remained standing. "Go on, sit," Caleb said, amused. "Want me to get you some coffee?" "No," Jake said, wincing as he spoke. "Just wanted to see how the contract was coming along." "As hurt?" Caleb asked. Jake stiffened, then exploded. "None of your business." Caleb couldn't imagine who could have done this to Jake, but he had to respect their work. After thoroughly mocking Jake's condition, he finally asked what had happened. Jake would rather take the story to his grave. It was the first time he'd been so thoroughly humiliated, and at the hands of Lucas, no less. He hadn't been interested in Lucas initially, thinking him too young and innocent. That's why he'd introduced him to Caleb. But at the party, drunk and bored, he'd flirted with the kid. Lucas had blushed and asked if Jake was interested. One thing led to another, and they were kissing in the hallway. Lucas was sweet and responsive. Then, things took a turn. The details of how he ended up in a hotel room, pinned down and powerless, were a blur of shame and pain. The kid hadn't just slept with him. He'd beaten him up. When Jake woke up the next morning, he was covered in bruises and bite marks. Noah withdrew the cash from his bank account and bought an envelope from a stationery store. When he got home, he handed the envelope, filled with money, to his mother. "Let's pay back some of what we owe Caleb," he said. His mother tried to refuse, telling him not to worry about it, that she would handle the money. But Noah insisted, saying he had to repay what he could. His mother eventually took the money, her heart aching for her son. Before she left, Noah stopped her and gave her a small gift box. "I saw this on the way home. You can say it's from you." Noah's mother knocked on the neighbor's door. Caleb was surprised to see her. She tried to give him the envelope of money, a small first installment on their debt. Caleb refused, telling her the money was a gift, not a loan, and that she could have the IOU he had written. She insisted, pushing the envelope into his hands. Then, flustered, she shoved the gift box at him as well. "This is from... I saw this and thought of you." In the commotion, the box popped open, revealing a handsome tie. Caleb was stunned into silence. Having completed her mission, Noah's mother hurried back to her apartment. The lie was obvious. Caleb knew she wouldn't have bought such a tie. He went inside, tossed the envelope aside, and examined the tie. He couldn't understand it. Did this gesture mean something? Probably not. If it did, Noah would have given it to him himself. Despite his confusion, the next morning, Caleb wore the new tie to work. As he walked out of the building to meet his driver, he paused and looked up, searching for Noah's window among the grid of identical squares. Was he watching now? For a moment, he thought he saw a curtain move. That night, at another business function, Caleb ran into Lucas. The young artist was delighted, his smile innocent as ever. "Caleb, what a coincidence." His eyes lingered on Caleb's body. "Coming to our room for a drink later?" Caleb declined politely, offering to cover their tab for the night. As Caleb walked away, Lucas licked his dry lips, his mind filled with the image of Caleb's physique under the sharp suit. He was completely infatuated with Caleb's stoic, untouchable aura. He fantasized about making him cry. His phone buzzed. He saw the caller ID and his expression turned cold. "What?" A gruff voice yelled from the other end. "Where are you? What's wrong?" Lucas's tone was lazy, mocking. "Our dear Jake needs another round?" The voice exploded in a string of curses. Lucas smirked, hung up, and went into his room. Caleb stood by his car, smoking. He saw a familiar figure down the street. It was late. What was Noah doing out? He was in a suit, his shirt wrinkled, hair messy. He was walking in the direction of their apartment. Caleb told his driver to follow him slowly from a distance. At their complex, Noah didn't go inside. He sat on a bench to the side of the entrance, a spot hidden in the shadows. Caleb watched him from afar. He was just sitting there, occasionally checking his phone. After a while, Caleb walked over. His sudden appearance startled Noah, whose eyes went wide with a look of near terror. "What are you doing out here in the middle of the night? Trying to scare people?" Caleb asked. Noah blinked, as if verifying Caleb was real. "No," he said, his voice guilty. "Waiting for me?" Noah should have said no. But he looked at Caleb and the word wouldn't come out. The night was quiet. They could hear each other breathe. "Noah, what are you thinking?" Caleb finally asked. The figure on the bench was still as a statue. Then it spoke. "I'm not thinking about anything." Caleb studied his expression, then ran a hand through his hair in defeat. "Let's go upstairs. It's getting cold." He walked into the building and Noah followed. The elevator was filled with the faint smell of alcohol from Caleb. Neither of them spoke. As they stepped out, Caleb suddenly asked, "How's my tie today?" Noah's gaze flickered to Caleb's collar. "It looks good." "Really?" Caleb said. "The person who bought it has good taste." "Yes," Noah agreed, having noticed it earlier. "It suits you." The hallway light went out, plunging them into darkness. They both stood still. The sound of a child crying from a downstairs apartment startled the motion-activated light back on. In the sudden brightness, their eyes met. Caleb remembered once telling Noah he had beautiful eyes. Now they seemed to have regained their luster. The alcohol suddenly hit him. He leaned in close. "By now, would you say you've used me and thrown me away?" The question and his proximity made Noah step back until his back hit the cold wall. "Answer me," Caleb commanded. It was true. Yes, Noah admitted. "So? I'm sorry." The apology came quickly. Caleb didn't accept it. "Since you admit it, let's clear things up tonight." He straightened up, creating some space between them. "I can't just let you use me and discard me." He asked Noah if his illness was cured, if he remembered everything, and how he defined their relationship. Noah couldn't answer. Caleb offered choices: friend, neighbor, or ex-boyfriend. After a second of silence, Noah gave a different answer: benefactor. Benefactor. Caleb almost laughed. "It seems we have different definitions. To me, you're no different from an ex. And with exes, one needs to maintain distance." "How?" Noah asked, stunned. "I'll move out in a while. You don't have to pay back the money, but if you insist, you can contact Andy or Annie directly." Noah looked at him in disbelief. "You're moving?" It's best if we don't see each other again. I was considerate because you were sick, but you're better now, aren't you? The word sick made Noah shrink. Still, he pleaded, I won't bother you. Do you have to move? Caleb shook his head. Even if we don't see each other, just knowing you live across the hall makes me uncomfortable. The word uncomfortable struck Noah like a physical blow, draining the color from his face. Caleb was a skilled executioner, his cuts clean and final. If that's the case, Noah's voice sounded distant, unreal. It would be better if I moved. I'll sell the apartment. I'll pay you back then. Caleb's hand, which had been on his doorknob, dropped. Why don't you want me to move? He waited for an answer, but the hallway remained silent. He gave a slight, bitter twist of his lips. Do as you wish. He opened his door and went inside without another look back. Caleb stood under the shower, letting the water pour over him. His phone rang twice before he picked it up. It was Jake, his voice trembling. Where are you? Come get me. He was on some boulevard, freezing. He refused a driver, insisting only Caleb could come. Cursing Jake under his breath, Caleb hung up and called his driver back. When he opened his door to leave, he froze. The motion sensor light illuminated the hallway, revealing Noah, standing in the exact same spot where Caleb had left him. You never went back inside? Caleb's voice was hoarse. Like a thief caught in the act, Noah denied it at first, then trailed off, unable to find a plausible excuse. He looked down, certain that Caleb was now completely disgusted with him. Caleb's patience ran out. He strode forward and cut off Noah's stammering explanation by kissing him. When he finally pulled back, Noah's cheeks were flushed, his mind blank from lack of oxygen. His dark eyes stared at Caleb. Caleb's hand was still on Noah's waist. He raised a thumb and wiped a trace of saliva from the corner of Noah's mouth, a gesture more intimate than the kiss itself. Stop lying to yourself, Noah, Caleb murmured, his lips almost touching Noah's again. You don't want me to move because you're still in love with me. He leaned in for another kiss, but Noah's hand shot up to his forehead, and he was shoved away forcefully. The next sound was a door slamming shut. The deed done, Caleb stood in the dark hallway until his driver called. He found Jake in his flashy purple sports car, naked and shivering. Caleb tossed a set of clothes through the open window without looking, then walked away. When Jake was dressed, Caleb looked him over. Mugged again? Jake, furious and humiliated, refused to talk about it. It was late when Caleb got home. The hallway was empty, showing no signs of what had happened earlier. He didn't disturb the frightened creature hiding across the hall. The next afternoon at the office, he told Annie to cancel his weekend business trip. The arrangements have already been made, Annie said, looking troubled. It might be difficult to cancel. Then send Jake, Caleb said. Understood, Annie replied, not mentioning that Jake's office had been a war zone all morning. A handsome young man had visited, polite on the way in, but minutes later, the sounds of crashing and yelling had erupted from within. The young man, Lucas, had emerged with a split lip and wrinkled clothes, but still managed a gentle smile for the secretary. The office behind him was in shambles.